So this is session 3, empowering other adults and volunteers to see the need for ministering to teens. This is Scott Rektenwald. He'll be your host today and main lecturer. And I got that one on recording. And so now Bergen will know that between session 1 and session 3 is one that doesn't have a session on it. He'll know which one that is now.
Did we not record in session 2?
No, we recorded session 2, but remember I didn't record the intro.
Yeah, that's true.
Session 2 is this.
Yes, this right here. Yeah. We already did that one. Alright. Everybody's a little bit more full, a little bit more tired. The score is tied 17-17 for those who are watching. So we're live streaming the Texas game instead on the back of the room. I'm watching the score right now. Alright. So, alright, still the same thing. Make sure we can stop at any point, especially with just a few of us now. Then we can just very much conversational. Like let's just talk if we need to. So there's my funny quips of the class. Actually I have no funny quips this time. I'm sorry. All right. So this session can be definitely applied to any age group, but mainly we'll still focus on the youth group age students, and that's the whole goal, is how to recruit successfully. But to me, this is that last part of that sentence is the most important part, healthily, and actually be making sure that we're actually doing that. All right, so on your notes as you walked in, or you can be able to go get them now, but I think Stephen did not pass those out, but Bill did, so. All right, so write down 5 things that you are good at doing. In no particular order. 5 things you are good at doing, and it doesn't have to necessarily be ministry/teaching related. I'm going to try to come up with my own list as well. Did you already write yours?
No.
Are you just trying to think of something you're good at doing?
Yeah.
It's procrastinating.
Building Legos for Stephen.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see.
What?
Forgetting.
5 things you are good at doing.
Not keeping a calendar. Overbooking myself.
Not parenting. That's like on the 100th thing on the list.
Not spelling, I can tell you that. We had a staff meeting the other day and we were supposed to write things to each other and no one could read my handwriting either, so.
I'm glad I'm not making you turn these in.
Yep.
It's really funny, I said it doesn't have to be teaching ministry related, and all my stuff was teaching ministry related, so.
Yeah, I tried to keep it away from that and could only come up with like 2 things. So I was like, well, good to see I'm a jack of all trades.
Did you get your 5 things now?
Got 4.
That's it.
Close.
4 and I peaked.
Yeah.
And your 5th could be
I really count.
not counting.
And there we go, right there. Please pray for Jim as he... No, the question is, Jim, and we'll let you catch up here in a second, but 5 things that you are good at doing in no particular order. But guess what the next slide says? Rank them in order of which ones you're good at doing.
5 is nothing.
Did you ever come up with number 5 yet, though?
No, not yet.
Give up, huh? Procrastination.
Just kind of like a constant mediocre.
That's honestly me. Though, like, am I okay at playing video games with kids? Yeah, but I'm not good. I do it, but I'm not good at it, and I okay at smoking meat or grilling.
Oh, that's a good one. All right.
Yeah, you
I
probably
thought you
did.
said smoking weed.
That part was it.
Edit it! No, you can say meat!
Smoking meat.
I'm from Hobbs.
Now I have 6, man.
You didn't tell me you had that skill.
I've cooked for a lot of
You what?
a lot of events
You
here.
didn't tell me you had that skill.
The weed or the meat?
Smoking.
I'm really sorry for Bergen on this recording. Do we restart or?
Bergen, we can restart this if we need to. This is what happens when we go down in number. All right, so now here comes the hard part. All right, so we're going to go from 5 down to 1, sharing your number 5 thing you're best at, and then going down. So it's only a few of us, it just makes this
So number
possible.
1 is the best. Number 5 is the worst.
Yes, 5 is the worst.
No, 5 is the 5th best thing you're good at.
Okay, we're going to go that way? Which way are we going to go?
I was thinking along Luke's.
So 5 is the best?
No, it's the
what
5th
is the
best.
best?
You can't say
Oh,
worst.
5th.
These
Oh,
are
5th.
5
I got
good
you.
things.
Okay, yes. Okay, I got you. All right, so I'll start off. My 5th best thing I'm good at doing is service. I like serving people. So
My 5th best thing is communication.
My 5th. Oh, what are we going to?
Jim might not have his 5 things down yet.
Yeah, I'm still working.
Okay. my 5th best thing is communication.
Oh, class participation.
Still made the top 5.
All right, number 4. My 4th best thing. I have high energy pretty much all the time. So
I'm pretty good at video games.
So I actually put energy as my lowest. Probably.
okay, there we go.
But serving 4.
Okay.
Serving is my 4th. I'm just following the person that's in front of me now.
Wait a minute.
I honestly really struggling with this whole exercise, so I'd say 4th, maybe making people laugh.
Okay. My 3rd best thing is being intentional in all things parenting, marriage, things like that.
Number 3, I put the ability to drop what I'm doing and be there for a friend, whether it's a shoulder to cry on or arms to help move or watch a baby for an hour, whatever it may be.
Cool.
3, connection.
So 3 was encouraging.
Y'all, you didn't follow it very well this time.
To say organizing.
Number 2 on my list was being relational.
Number 2 was music and singing.
2 is problem solving.
2 is building things, in a sense, just anything with my hands.
That include Legos.
It does, but also engines, carpentry.
So my 1 and 2 are kind of divided.
Okay.
They're both teaching, but my 2nd is more teaching like what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
My 1st is more teaching one-on-one. I guess you could say more like a discipleship kind of deal, you know.
Very good.
It's just, it's more the Deuteronomy 6.
Mhm.
That's where I shine.
Okay.
That's my 1.
My number 1 is planning. I like to plan things. I plan all of our family vacations. I do all that stuff. We've done several mystery trips, and I've completely planned all of it. My wife did not know where we were going even, so she didn't like that part.
My number 1 is taking care of my family.
Yeah, just always being there for my family, friends, intentionality.
Yeah.
I put relational.
And he already said his number 1. None of you said volunteer recruitment, though.
How did you have that slide ready?
How did you know that was my number 6?
Because this could be the biggest headache for most of us in ministry, is trying to find the volunteers to fill those holes. And if you've ever helped try to organize children's ministry, that's even way worse, to try to find that many people to fill that many holes at one time. Even just trying to fill holes, I don't know about you guys, for like retreats and things like that, it becomes difficult. Trying to find people to teach, things like that. It's one of the biggest headaches sometimes in ministry / teaching, finding those spots. My actual biggest headache, and we won't dive into this one, I did not make it class number 4, gladly, is fundraising. That's by far the least favorite part, or collecting money from people. That's always. But my goal is to make this hopefully a tad bit easier for you guys, and to see the importance of it. And going back to that whole 5-in-1 thing, it's kind of just that mantra all the way through today's class. But notice as each and every one of you wrote down your skills, I don't know, I struggled with it. Even on writing mine, Bill kind of said that as well. I struggle with coming up with things that I'm good at. It's like I'm average at everything. I don't feel like I'm good at almost anything, but there's stuff I enjoy. I don't have a lot of free time, honestly, so I don't really get to use a lot of those things anymore in life. Now as my kids are growing older, I get to play video games with my kids and stuff, so I get to enjoy that and try to help my kids be able to develop that skill. But really, like, I just don't have a lot of free time. I don't have a lot. I've gotten a smoker this past, for meat, let's clarify this time, this past Christmas, and I've gotten to use it 3 times. I'm good at it, I just don't ever have time to do it. And my family likes to eat at 5 o'clock, so there's that issue. But here's the thing, though, is to figure out how to, everyone has skills. Each and every one of you has skills. It's a question of how to apply those and plug those in. And finding those skills sometimes for other people and say, you know what, Stephen, you're really good at song leading. Even though I know you don't like to necessarily all the time, but you're really good at doing that. And so sometimes that's someone telling you that you're really good at this and they see something in you. And kind of this, same thing. We each have a gift to the body of Christ. We all have different gifts. We all have different things that we're giving. If everyone has to give just a little bit, no one ever has to give a lot. And it can make your job easier. It can make your job for teaching easier. It can make everything easier in life. When I'm thinking about volunteers, I think about, there's this one clip from one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's kind of an older one, but it's a good animated movie, and it really applies to this. Watch this clip.
Is Bigwell, the greatest robot in the world.
I thought you were the greatest robot in the world.
No, besides me. He's the head of Bigweld Industries. He invents things that make everyone's life better.
Could I meet him?
Sure, maybe someday.
Dad?
Yeah?
What do you do?
Me? Oh, I work in a big, fancy restaurant. I'm a dishwasher.
It's the Bigweld Show!
Oh, yeah? Uh-huh. Come on, Dad. We're missing it.
Right, Rodney. All right, I'm coming. I had to bring work home with me again. I'm sorry. Mr. Gunkins really been piling it on.
And now, the host of our show, Bigweld!
Welcome. This week, I thought you might like to take a look around Bigweld Industries. This here is the front gate. Kind of cute, ain't it? Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Mr. Bigweld, sir.
Tim, who closed the front gate?
Well, I just thought since,
Oh, we never shut the gate, Tim. Shutting this gate means shutting out fresh ideas. You see, every day robots come here from hither and yon, bringing us new ideas. And I listen to every single one of them. So remember, whether a bot is made of new parts, old parts, or spare parts, you can shine no matter what you're made of.
talking to me, Dad?
He sure is, son. He sure is. Okay, folks, let's get to inventing. You know, I love to tinker, but all the tinkering in the world isn't useful unless it starts with a good idea. So, look around for a need and start coming up with ideas to fill that need. One idea will lead to another, and before you know it, you've done it. See a need, fill a need.
That's it, Dad. I have to look for a need.
So what lines out of that apply to volunteers?
See a need, fill a need.
Yep. So you need fill a need. There's one other one that stood out to me as well. You can shine no matter what you're made of. And that, see a need, fill a need. And I think sometimes we need to pass the baton off to other people to help them feel like that they're a part of something, to feel like they have something to give. What I hear notoriously from the 17 years of experience I've had is that I'm not equipped to be able to do that. Or you can't use the talent that I have. And I'm like, oh, try me. We'll figure out some way to plug in your talent to the body of Christ. Helping you can shine no matter what you're made of. Kind of that whole entire mantra there in the Robots Club. Helping volunteers find their value. You don't have to be at the very best at something you're doing, but we need to show people to show the love of Christ through their actions and through their gifts. It's important for people to see as well. Remember, whether it be teens, children, and adults, we aren't the very best at what we do. And if teens see that, teens see someone that's maybe not the very best class teacher, and I think we're very protective on that sometimes, but realizing that they could do that as well someday. And I think when we get protective on allowing certain people to teach, then we're also saying you have to be the very, very best to teach, and not allowing teens to almost kind of to succeed through their failures, to get better over time and be able to equip them to be able to do that. See a need, fill a need. If you have a need, fill it. Find the needs you have in your ministry and fill it with the people you have. Sometimes that might not be the very most ideal situation, but kids won't know. They will see people that are trying their very best. And I think so many times we have such high expectations on our volunteers that we kind of miss that sometimes. This is a way older book, as you can tell by the cover right there, but it has one of my favorite quotes on volunteers. Recruitment of volunteers is perhaps the most unglamorous part of any ministry, even though it's one of the most essential. Besides being unglamorous, recruitment can be difficult. Not all adults readily respond to the challenge of working with young people, but then again, not all adults should. And I think that's important to realize. That sometimes they're not ready for that, sometimes that maybe they shouldn't. There's some red flags I'm going to get to here in just a second. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm asking for volunteers, I feel like I'm a used car salesman. It's like, all right, hey, you want to try this? No, how about this one instead? And keep on trying to find the right one. Clip from Matilda about the shady guy, Matilda. Sometimes I feel like that, though. That I'm trying to talk them into something maybe they're not necessarily ready for. And so we're going to skip that next one right there because I want to make sure I get to some of this stuff. Ezekiel 22:30. I think this is kind of a key verse right here when I'm kind of thinking about like we're trying to get volunteers to fill this gap. I searched for a man among them who would build up a wall and stand in the gap before me for the land, so that I would not destroy it, but I found no one. Ultimately, a wall is built to protect. And our goal is to help protect our teens. Ultimately, we've got to find people that are just willing to fill that role, to fill that gap. In Matthew 9:37, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Finding those people that are willing to actually give and help this harvest of teenagers that are ready. Here's a few musts for volunteers. Realizing that not everyone should work with youth or your ministry. Not everyone is called that way. And if they don't have a passion for that, that's okay. That's okay to say that. Knowing who to recruit is way more important than how to recruit. Are we releasing you now?
I'll be right there.
Okay. Knowing more important who to recruit and be able to find those people is way more important. You find that need and you fill that need, sort of mentality. Quality is way more important than quantity. Having a ton of volunteers that don't really care to be there is not going to be good necessarily either. You want those people that really have a passion and a care for this. Don't settle for everyone for key roles. Find the right leaders. Find those people that are actually very interested in doing this. Every single volunteer with children or youth, please do a background check on. Just putting us in a danger. Do this on a regular basis. Our thing is every 3 years, do a background check. It doesn't hurt. It's a little bit of cost. It's like $7 a background check. It's well worth it. There's also this finding those right qualities. Making sure that they have these qualities with them. This is the quality over quantity section. A genuine relationship with Christ, very important. You want someone that actually cares about this. His or her lifestyle is a positive Christian witness. Making sure that they're actually living a godly life. The person sees a need to work with you, that they actually like, hey, I want to be able to help with this. They are connected to the larger church body. I've had several volunteers that come in and they literally only showed up for a youth group to help, and they would actually leave before the church service started. Yet again, that didn't teach our teens anything healthy. They won't go rogue and try to do their own ministry amongst the ministry that's already going on. The person is a team player as well. Here are a few red flags in my experience to watch out for. So I'll share some personal stories about people that struggle with short-term commitments. Subbing would be great for that person, by the way, and finding like you can only do. I have a family there at Idalou that say use me as a sub anytime, but I will not teach more than I only do 5-week rotations. I'll talk about that in a second. But if you, they just will not even teach 5 weeks, but 1 week they will do. Great. I'll use those when I'm out of town, things like that. They're people that I can trust. They just can't commit more than 1 week at a time. So great for short-term commitments, finding ways to put people in short-term, that's good, but if they're struggling with the long-term, don't sign them up for teaching for a whole entire quarter or anything like that. A critical spirit. I think we've all probably seen someone that maybe in the church has a critical spirit before. There's someone that's just never going to be happy with what's going on. Yet again, finding those people and realizing maybe this isn't the best fit. Major life crisis. They need to be ministered to, not be doing the ministry. Hidden agenda people. People that are just like, okay, I'm going to look for the flaws in your ministry. Kind of going back to that critical spirit. Not committed to living a Christian life. Yet again, going back to what we saw earlier, living the Christian life out loud. Unsupportive spouses. One time I had a volunteer that's wife I really never saw. And I'm like, is everything okay? And he ended up trying to persuade a girl to come home with him one time. Because there was a lot of signs that I should have been watching out for, and I just didn't see, because he was like the ultimate volunteer. He wanted to be involved in everything and connected with everything. But he was a military guy there in Clovis, and it didn't work out. Start in smaller role before you let them take on the bigger roles. I think that's an important stair-step mentality. Don't throw them into a long-term teaching thing until you've kind of seen them already in the bad things kind of that can happen in that short term. You can kind of realize those things. The next set we're going to work through is 15 tips to find those volunteers, because this is the hard part. Finding those volunteers and what are some different tips for them. And I'm sorry, I tried to reduce it down to 10, but I was like, I'm just going to put more on the slide if I do 10. So here's 15 different tips to find those volunteers. Number 1, first assess the current needs of your ministry. Very important. Look at what short-term you need, what long-term you need. Is this a 1-day need, a week-long, or a weekend? Looking at those needs, finding all the holes in your current ministry. At Sunset, it was a much larger church than what I'm at now, at Idalou, and we wrote down every single volunteer role we had for the whole entire year. And we said, okay, now our goal is to ask every single one of our youth parents to serve in at least one of those roles. And some of those were big, some of those were small, but everyone was going to be asked at least once a year. And yet again, we wanted to start with the parents, and then we went intergenerational. But some of those intergenerational ones were better for that. Really high encourage, if I don't get it to it, if you have never ever read this book, Sustainable Youth Ministry, really highly encourage it. Very, very good read, and his volunteer system is really, really good. It's at the very end of my PowerPoint, but we know how that's worked so far in our other sessions.
When you try to fill those holes, the way I like to do it is I kind of send out a massive form to our parents and say, here's all the things you could sign up for, go for it. Or do you prefer, hey, Becky, I think you would be great to meet this need. What do you think, Becky?
I think there's both.
Okay.
I think there is a need for both. Finding ways to get them plugged in, if it's that one parent meeting a year type thing, or if it's just that massive email. Ultimately, some people will not volunteer that way. Yeah. They want to be personally asked, or I'll get into a tip here in just a second, they want to also be asked face to face, not just via text, not just via email. Because you're way less likely to say no if it's face to face. Also, we'll get into it in a second. I'll get to it, I promise. Okay. All right, tip number 2. Think outside the box to find volunteers. It's the kind of attaching onto that one. Finding all the different needs, but thinking outside the box. How can you plug in people? Finding all the different needs. Finding those needs that maybe you don't necessarily think about that is a need, but it's something simple someone can do. For example, I have one of my moms right now who's helping me redesign our high school room. And it's like, hey, that's not my skill. I can do it. It's definitely not going to be on my top 5 things right there, but I'm going to use that person to help find that skill. You need to order Bibles? Good. Go have one of the parents pick up Bibles if they want to. Finding someone, everybody has a niche they can be able to fill, and it doesn't have to always be on us. If they say no to your immediate need, counteroffer and say, well, what about this instead? And just keep on going through a list and keep on coming back to them. They'll eventually say yes. Maybe they don't need to say yes sometimes, but they'll eventually say yes. Tip number 3, start with a prayer. I should have started that as number 1, but you kind of, before you even ask anybody at all, pray first. Pray for their heart to be softened. Pray for your students. Offer to pray with them too. They'll see your heart is for ministry, not just to fill a need. Tip number 4, yet again, list the people. List all your people out. List all the different leaders you currently have right now, different leaders in the church, existing youth leaders, ask students who they think is a good leader, who they want to be able to reach out to. Yet again, that's a part of that Growing Young book technique. This is the Growing book. I have the Growing Young office. Parents of teenagers, younger volunteers, older volunteers, everywhere in the middle. Try to think of how many, yet again, just because I don't connect with a person doesn't mean Bill might not connect with the person. To be able to have different people all reaching out to them. Yet again, if our goal is that 5 people they can connect with, finding all sorts of different people from different walks of life. Tip number 5, recruit way in advance. Waiting until the very last minute usually doesn't work with people. The earlier you can get it on their calendar, earlier you can get it on their schedule, the more likely they are to commit. My goal, asking teachers, is 6 months out. My wife, who works in the children's ministry, is 9 months to a year out. Because it's like as soon as that teaching rotation is over, like, hey, can I go ahead and pencil you in for that next year's rotation at this time? Does this time work? And that's what I'll usually do. At 6 months out, I'll do the same thing, where it's like, hey, I had you down as teaching high school 6 months ago. Can we count on you again to do that for that 5 weeks at a time? For trips, I usually aim for 2 to 3 months out, because then I can kind of figure out the calendar, figure out what we actually need at that point. General volunteers and food starts as the numbers start coming in a few weeks out type thing. The earlier you can get it on people's schedule, the more likely they are able to commit. And finding those different needs that fill up along the way. For longer term teachers, it's easier to find them, find subs than it is to find teachers at the very, very last minute. They're going to teach for 5 weeks at a time or a quarter at a time. You can fill those spots with subs, those short-term people, then it's a lot easier. And that's just my word of advice. Yet again, if you have any questions, we'll stop at any time. Tip number 6, create an information packet. This is something I did at Sunset, and I've started building it out of I haven't finished mine yet. But specifically, create a very general title of what their role is going to be in that position. Realizing it's not going to be as difficult as what they might think it might be. Even listing same things. Here's some other options. After you get done with this, here's some other options for you to be able to fill in and do as well. Telling them about the ministry, telling them what's going on with the ministry, things like that. Background checks and that, the safety policy, things of that nature. The more you act like you have it together, the more likely they are to say yes, because they realize that you're organized and taking care of the situation, taking care of them as volunteers as well. Questions on that before I go on? That's kind of a...
That last bullet is spot on.
Yeah, it really is. If you act like you act, notice I say act, it appears like everything is going to, and it makes it easier for them, because they're like, okay, realize I'm going to give you if you already have your curriculum, for example, or you already have tell them exactly what you're going to be teaching on during that series. Let them know. Give as much information as you can give them. Doesn't mean they'll necessarily read it, but they'll have it, just in case, type thing. Number 7, recruit in person. Yet again, it's harder to say no face to face. If I send a blanket text out to parents, a lot of times if it's a smaller event, I'll create a sign-up genius and things like that to say like, hey, we need someone at the lock-in from this time. I hate lock-ins. We're not going to talk about that one though. But I got people that didn't respond. But once I asked them face-to-face, they said yes. If they say no, then pencil it in another way for them to volunteer down the line. Be specific. Get them in slowly if need be. People are intimidated and scared by teenagers and children and things like that, and so they get scared and like, okay, if I can just ease them in slowly, the better off it's going to be. Tip number 8, guide them. This is kind of it sounds like it's going to be hard because you're trying to fill that in, but realize this, that when they first are volunteering, they're very nervous and apprehensive, but if they can just follow along and see what class is, maybe it won't be as difficult for them. Do volunteer training, another part of it as well, and helping them through the volunteer spot. Hello again. Tip number 9, recruit parents. Yet again, if our goal is to be family ministry focused, have the parents there as much as they possibly can be. Yet again, I know not every parent is qualified to teach. I know not every parent should be constantly involved. I know some teens do not want their parents constantly there, but it's still good for them. Plus, if you have a harder kid, then they can see their harder kid. If their kid is constantly causing disruptions in class, things like that. Jim, I know your kids are always rowdy, right? In Stephen's ministry, so. Sometimes having the parents there helps. Sometimes it doesn't help, I will say as well. Sometimes that they are even more disrespectful if that is happening. Tip number 10, diversity is important. If your church is diverse at all, make sure you try to include those different diversity of different volunteers. Culturally, economically, everything, make sure that you're including people, because yet again, you have students that are represented all different cultures, all different types. Make sure to be including those cultures, different cultures, making sure you're getting a wider range of volunteers, older, younger, everywhere in between, different age groups, making sure to incorporate them. This is a big one. I made it bigger letters so that way you can focus on it. Getting leaders to help recruit other volunteers. As Jim is a parent, Jim has more connections than I do because he is a parent of current teenagers. So he can be able to reach out to other parents and get them involved and connected. We're like, hey, we really need more volunteers. And being able to equip other people to help recruit those people will help. Getting in, going through all the safety policies and all that stuff as well. Tip number 12, recruit for short term. Make smaller teacher rotations. I know a lot of children's ministry has to do this. They like to do a quarter at a time. I've seen Sunset when I first arrived, they were doing half a year at a time. And I was like, I can't commit more than like 2 to 3 weeks sometimes, let alone a full half a year. So try to make those commitments a little bit shorter term. It will require more work, it will require more volunteers, but try to commit 4 to 5 weeks at a time for teaching rotations, things like that. My goal is to only have teachers for five weeks at a time, plus my goal is to only ask you as a parent especially to volunteer to do that once a year. And so you're being able to incorporate as many different adults into the ministry as possible. Like I said, children's ministry, that's a lot more difficult. Don't even touch there. Teens, college, and adults, it's a lot more doable to do short term for that. Tip number 13, you fill the spots less. That one's hard. That's hard for me as a minister because I feel like there's that pressure to fill those spots, right? Where there's that pressure that we should be doing a lot more of it. But at the same time, if you're equipping other people to do that ministry, yet again, you're working your way out of your job, that's not necessarily a bad thing because you're going to find other kids out there that need you more. We set the standards oftentimes too high. Also for me, our youth kids can get oversaturated with us as well. Mm-hmm. They'll get used to my teaching style. If I only teach high school, I don't know about the other guys in here, if I only teach high school, they'll start getting too used to me and they'll be ready to change up type stuff. I teach 5 weeks in middle school, 5 weeks high school, and I usually do one more set of that, and then I take 5 weeks off. And so being able to make sure that they're getting other people in there and be able to have other volunteers to do that. Yet again, putting the ministry back into the hands of the parents as much as possible. Yeah, those who are ministers, we do this a lot though. So
I will say this is a tricky one though with elderships because there are some elderships that are thinking, well, if the youth minister's not in the classroom, why are we paying a youth minister? Why can't we just get our volunteers to do this? So I've had a few colleagues that have had this affect them negatively when they didn't discuss it on the front end with their eldership to understand that was the overall goal.
Right. Yeah, it's a hard one. It is a tricky one if we're constantly teaching type thing and we all of a sudden slide back like, why are you not teaching every single week? And it's really funny because we don't necessarily expect our preacher constantly in the classroom, but they're expected in the pulpit most of the times of the year. But like I think, for example, like our preacher Jeff, he takes off I think 10 weeks a year is what he's promised off from the pulpit. Wow. And so I don't know what it's like in Hobbs at all or anything like that. I don't know.
When I was a paid minister, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Now, for example, like Jeff, the 10 weeks that he gets is he's still there, but he's just participating. He's usually helping with worship and things like that, but giving other people the opportunity to be able to preach and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a hard 2 weeks, man. Only 2 Sundays?
For the whole year. I was the youth minister, but the pulpit minister had the same deal.
2 weeks of vacation?
We were only allowed to be gone 2 Sundays a year. Wow. It was tough.
Yeah, that's tough. Because, I mean, well, I'm assuming conferences and things like that would be covered, like if you're going on a retreat, that wouldn't count.
Yeah, if you're on a retreat or, a trip with the church, then that didn't count.
Yeah.
But, and I only ever went to one conference in 7 years I was.
Wow.
So.
Sunset was weird. They did, there was no set amount of times you'd be gone on a Sunday, which blew my mind. But you just couldn't be gone 2 Sundays in a row. So Sunday was not a work day, but a work day. Even though every single one of us would say it's definitely a work day type thing. I get 4 Sundays off a year, but I mean Wednesdays and all that isn't necessarily counted in that. I'm not saying that you just take off. You're not there, but you're helping. Like I'm helping in an adult class during that time. In my 5 weeks off per year, like I usually teach 2 times in another class. I teach 4th and 5th grade once because they're fixing to be coming into the youth group, and I teach the adult class during that time. And I've taught parenting series and stuff like that. But I'm not only working with the youth. So let me clarify. When I'm saying to volunteer less, always teaching, I'm saying to volunteer other places and get to know other people in the church. So let me clarify what I was meaning by that and all that. But so yes, you aren't necessarily with the youth, but you're getting other people to connect as well. Oh goodness, I'm running out of time again, guys. All right, tip number 14. Make sure you're giving little gifts and thank yous. A handwritten note still goes a very long way. It shows not just a text, actually writing a note goes a long way. Number 15, manage your expectations. Realize that they will not do the same as you would all the time, pretty much ever. And that's okay. The church will be there long after you are gone. Even if it's just a teaching rotation, if you work there, they will be there long after you. Volunteer recruitment is hard, but none of us can ever be there every single day of their lives for these kids. So yet again, incorporating that 5-to-1 sort of ratio. The more volunteers you have, the more students you can reach. They can reach. You're able to reach out to others. It's not only better, it's not only just healthy for just ourselves, but it's healthy for our students, it's healthy for our parents, and for even the church. Okay, so I'm going to close with this question, and then we'll be done with this and take a few minute break. What's the most difficult part about recruiting volunteers? I'm just going to not even say new, recruiting volunteers. What is the most difficult part for you?
Giving up control.
Yeah. It's that quality control, insurance. You know what they're going to teach. You know what's going to happen. And trusting that.
Yeah, and sometimes too it's, I'm a very big self-doubter, and so sometimes too it's if I'm asking someone to teach and I give them a lesson plan or a few weeks, it's will they think that's good enough? Do they think that is biblical? Do they think that is, well put together or not? And so sometimes too it's also just self-doubt and what I'm providing at times.
Yeah. It comes down to what if they like them better sometimes as well for us. Yeah.
Tapping the same shoulder all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to always go to the same person you know is going to be reliable, but in reality, you're not connecting with others who might want to volunteer or just expanding your volunteer base in general.
Yeah, I think, and that's where I probably struggle the most, is that I inevitably go to the same 5 or 6 people that I know and trust, and being able to connect with those people. Kind of on that, and I didn't say the variety, making sure, inevitably, we always do middle school and high school on Sunday mornings, but once a semester I do guys and girls instead, to make sure we have ladies opportunity to be able to teach the ladies with that. So not necessarily, not talking about gender specifics and stuff like that, but it's a way to get more of those volunteers. You're not shoulder tapping at the same time. And also if you have someone that's a key volunteer for planning events and stuff like that, then that gives them a different option to be able to teach a class for those girls and stuff. And then I take out a couple of those weeks usually and be able to teach the girls. And, so.
I don't know what y'all's congregations are like. Ours is small enough that I can't even apply a lot of this.
Okay.
A lot of your tips, because I've been there 28 years. I know the people very well. And, I've watched, we had an elder one time that he was insistent that we get this one particular guy to teach teens, and it's back when I was a full-time youth minister, and I don't know about that, and I was hoping to get a chance to talk to him more about it. The next time I saw him, he already told the guy he was going to teach teens. It was a really bad idea. We had to pull him out of teaching the teens. It was so bad.
Yeah.
We had teens that were stopping, they weren't coming to class anymore. Parents that were bringing the kids to the adult class. It wasn't that he was teaching anything wrong. It was just, he was not ready to do that.
Right.
he wasn't equipped to do that, and he almost left the church over it. And
That's what's killer, yeah.
because he had an ego problem, and when we pulled him out, he took it really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of had a victim mentality all the time anyway, and he wasn't spiritually mature enough to do that, and he wasn't equipped to do that, and he was just thrown in there. And that's the other thing, we have so many people, we have an extremely small amount in our congregation that can step in and do that. They're not, we haven't been able to get people to dedicate themselves to getting equipped.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is somebody else. That's somebody else's job, you know. I'm not, you know, that's what they think is that, no, that's somebody else will do that. And they won't apply themselves to learning so that they can be in a place
Mm-hmm.
that they're even askable, you know. And so that's the hardest thing for me, is that getting people to just learn, to mature themselves to the point that they can ask them.
Yeah.
It's like I might find some people that do it, but it's, you know, I've seen, like through that story, what happens when you put somebody in that doesn't have the maturity, they don't have
Right.
the knowledge.
It comes down to this. Like, we can go and try to, I'd be like, okay, I want 100 teachers. Okay, that's not realistic. But the quality, and that's what's hard. It goes back to that quality control. We know we can control the quality of what is being put out there. And it's realizing not everybody is required, like, equipped to be able to teach. It's a slow process. There's only a handful that I really trust in our current church context, and there's some people I'm like, okay, I've been asked not to allow these people to teach, and it's hard. It's almost like, I hate telling someone that way. Like, okay, you're asking me to tell someone this. Like, how do I tell that to someone who has taught for a number of years before, but it's time to move them on, sort of situation. And so I just fill it up super fast, and half the time it's filled up with me. And so when I'm saying, like, to ask teachers to volunteer, or people to volunteer to teach and stuff like that, I take half of those spots immediately. I teach every single Wednesday night, except for when we do a simple supper, so we don't have class that night. But the other times I teach, like I said, I'm teaching 42 times out of the year, besides holidays and stuff like that. So the majority of the time it's still usually me. And during the summer it's combined and I teach. So I don't even have to find that many. I think having people walk alongside with you is a slow start. And that's what I've had people do before. Like, hey, would you just come up here and just volunteer in the class? And that's a slow way to get them in, to finding that equipping. Because that's what is hard. So let's take a short break and we'll come back to this because I think there's still some more to dive into on this and keep on talking. So let's take a 8-minute break and we'll come back.